Matthew Lloyd has a question. Let's see here. Boy, big one. You know what? I'm going to answer this one. I think that's going to call it a night. I know it's going to be a very short Stratosphere Lounge. I'm very sorry about that. But I do have an awful lot of things I have to do tonight. And but as I said, I'm hungry. Here's Matthew's question. It's a long one. I don't know what it says yet. Bill, I need some career advice. I've got a buddy who is thinking about changing careers and has asked me for advice. He's thinking about applying at a local university for an opening as an equal opportunity Title IX investigator. He would investigate allegations of discrimination, harassment, sexual misconduct, etc. The university leans on the more progressive side, even by university standards. He's fairly conservative, and I have some concerns, but I'm not sure what to tell him. It would be a good financial move for him, and it would allow his wife to stop working so that they can focus on having kids and starting a family. His perspective is that if we don't have good, sane people in that position, then we'll only have the activist crazies. My concern is that this could be an exercise in futility and a doomed move from the start. It's one thing to fight the good fight, but this seems more like throwing a mongoose into a whole den of cobras. If his colleagues, his supervisors, and the institution in general are against his brand of common sense, I don't know for sure that they are, but it seems a reasonable guess, then I can see this quickly becoming soul-crushing rather than an opportunity to do good. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Please share your thoughts. I don't think you're wrong. A well-paying job is very attractive, and if it's something that's a step up socially and financially, people want to take it. And the argument about keeping good people in the system is a valid argument, and God knows it's something noble and something we should applaud your friend for. But you're absolutely right. They're not going to be able to make a difference because the environment is so ideological and so overwhelming. So it's not just quantity, it's quality as well. You're moving into a toxic pit. I went to Stephen Austin University in Nacogdoches, Texas, and the level of fanaticism and enforced internal ignorance was so overwhelming, Matthew, that I just coming out of there, I remember thinking, there comes a point when you realize you cannot bail the Titanic. You just can't. You can fight it. You can work the pumps. You can do everything you can to stop that ship from going down. But there's going to come a point when you realize this ship is going to the bottom, and the question is, am I going with it? That's how I feel about universities today. All of them. No exceptions except for Hillcrest, or Hillhurst rather. They're all, I think, fatally compromised. And when I say fatally compromised, I think what I mean by that is these universities are going to have to fail, and the consequences of these decisions that these administrators have made are going to have to happen. It's not going to happen soon, but it is going to happen. They are manufacturing fanatical children with murder in their eyes, and they deserve each other. Many times now we're starting to hear about professors, progressive professors, who are somewhat shocked at the virulence of these young students, and they try to point out to them, no, you don't understand, I'm a progressive like you are. And then to their utter amazement, these professors will hear the students say, yes, but you're a male professor, or you're a white professor, you're a white male professor. As some woman's been, trumpeting feminist causes for 40 years, and she gets up there and expects the undying gratitude of the tearful, multitudes. And what they get instead is this woman who's been fighting for feminism her entire life. I said, what do you know about feminism? You're a white woman. You don't know anything about feminism. It's all transactional feminism. You can't know what feminism is until you're a LGBT woman of color, feminist. And so they eat their own. And that's what has to happen, right? When your whole philosophy is about other people and about envy and victimhood, then it's like Highlander. There can be only one. There can only be one top victim. Somebody's going to trump somebody, and somebody's going to trump somebody else. Perfect example of this was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in 2008. Hillary Clinton was running on the I'm a woman, I'm a victim, I'm a woman, it's time for a woman. And she got trumped by Barack Obama, said, tough break, kid, but I'm black, and that trumps your position in terms of the hierarchy of victimhood and social injustice. So that's what happened. Matthew, I don't want to look. I don't know anything about the situation. I don't know what the college is like or anything. But since you asked me, I would advise that person to run away. Run away. You, rather than feeling like they're doing some good and being a small candle in the darkness, they're going to end up hating themselves and likely get fired. Because if they do what the right thing is, then they're going to either get fired or reprimanded and be despised by everybody else in their entire community, not just the people at college, but the people in the town as well. And if, on the other hand, which I think is more likely, they start to go along to get along, they're going to come home at night and they're going to look at the ceiling and they're going to say, I've just compromised. I've compromised everything I believe in. I'm one of them now. I think it's a very poor idea. I think that the idea of that skill set could be very important, and the idea of wanting to help people and change the culture is very good. I'm utterly convinced that the university system in this country is going to go down, and that the answer is going to be a sort of a college version of homeschooling. And to the internet has done an awful lot to damage the society, but it's done an awful lot of good too. And the idea that right now, you could just go out and get a master's degree online. Just do it. And in many cases, you can do it for free. Somebody has to understand that this is the future, that the idea of these ivy and brick physical locations is coming to an end, which is a shame, by the way. It's a real shame, because university and college and universities was quite an amazing experience. But they're not places where you can be challenged anymore. They're not places where you learn something new. That's why I like going to college. I like meeting people and hearing things I hadn't heard before. Now you go in and you come out stupider than you were when you went in. It's stupider and also more fanatical. You're smaller. By the way, I mentioned this in an email to our members, but I know many of you aren't. When the event was over, I was talking to people, and we had a number of people come down, fans of mine, and supporting me, and so they stayed and talked, and we took some pictures and all the rest of it. And Malibu Trotsky decided that he was not going to leave because there was still great evil to be faced in the world. So he followed me out to the car, and we had two policemen walking right beside us, and he's a foot away from me, and calling me the vilest names you can imagine. As I say, this is not my inclination to take it. He called me a string of four-letter words to my face this far away. And I don't know where this came from. I genuinely don't know where it came from. But he got that out, and I looked at him, and instead of wanting to hit the guy, I just looked at him and said, if I had any respect for you at all, I think that would have hurt my feelings. So we go out to the car, and the police are with us, the two policemen. They've been called murderers by this guy and state executioners and all the rest. So this guy is following us out to the car, and he's explaining why he's able to follow us out to the car. It was his right to follow us out to the car, and true enough, there you go. So finally, Malibu Trotsky retreats into the shadows from whence he came. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. The policeman looked at me after he'd gone and said, "Don't let him bother you, sir. His world is very small." I thought, wow, okay. What a beautiful thing to say. So I asked him about his background. Turns out the policeman was a gunner, heavy gunner in the Army, right around Gulf War time. So he got to be called an assassin as a policeman. He got to be called a mass murderer, psychopathic lunatic for his work in the Army, by a guy who's never had a job, I'm sure, who hates everything, for whom nothing matches the internal splendor of his magnificent rage, But I couldn't have put it better if I lived 1,000 years. He's absolutely right. His world is very small. And I suspect, Matthew, that's what your friend is going to find. I suspect he's going to wake up and say, rather than having a chance to get in this fight, I suspect he's going to find himself in a very, very small world and surrounded by people that he does not like. We have an editor who's done a great job with the right angles, and we're going to start handing off more work to him. And he was living in L.A. when I met him, hired him 3-4 months ago, I guess. And then he moved to Colorado. And I asked him why, and he said because, well, he's obviously conservative, and so is his wife, and said, we can't take it anymore. My wife goes to work in a studio, and and we just can't take it anymore. Being surrounded by these people, we don't like what they think, but we're willing to listen. But they're not willing to listen, and they're filled with rage and hostility, and it's just not worth it. We're going to go where there's some real people, and that's what they did. So I suspect that that's what your friend's gonna have happen. So there you go.